Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the impromptu show. Last night, Brian and I were on, and we were talking about some of the stuff that went on down in Texas, and we were talking about how we really didn't care about Kevin. in, in in all seriousness, what we ended up talking about too is how we knew Kevin was going to be fine because of all because of everything he's done in his life, basically, plus the stuff he's been doing the last couple of years with his bug out truck is what I call it. I don't think he calls it that, but so all the things he was doing. So what we wanted to do, Brian decided that we'd kind of get all together tonight and talk about exactly that with Kevin. Some of the good things, some of the bad things, some of the, all the stuff that happened with all that stuff. We also talked with Sarah over on the Duff and Dale YouTube channel about some things that happened in Texas as well. So if you're not subscribed over there, make sure and subscribe over there. But Kevin, what's up?
Nothing. Well, the temperature's up. That's for sure. It was 70 something here today, almost 80. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, I've had Kevin on the show a couple times, but he runs the Wilderness Safety Institute. So he's been doing the whole Astur kind of survival stuff, being able to handle situations like this for some time. We've got a video, which I linked to below, talking about his bug out truck, some of the things that he's done. He's got an article over at wildsafety.com too, that goes through some of the pieces and parts of all that thing. So very cool video. You watch that after we get done here. But before we get into it, Brian, anything, what's going on?
Nah, man, I was just in the chat going back and forth with everybody. We have Liberated Lady.
Cool.
Who we got? Broken Nomad, the Titan Preparedness channel's in there. Hey, we just subscribed you, Titan Preparedness channel. And so, hey, everybody, if you're watching the show today, man, make sure you go check out the Titan Preparedness channel. Subscribe to them while you're at it. Nah, not much going on, man. It's nice to be out of the cold weather, I guess. It's good to see Kevin back online. I know I think you jumped online yesterday, didn't you? Like you got back up on Facebook. I saw you posting when was it yesterday?
Yesterday, I think I made a post on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. Oh, it was good. No, I'm glad you popped up there. So you weren't a human popsicle.
Not a popsicle.
Yeah, I did that. Popped up popsicle.
Oh, I wish I still had my snare drum joke thing. I deleted it off my thing. But anyway, before we get into some of the questions we have for you and some of the stuff that you did, as far as we talked to Sarah last night, and it sounded like she, some of the news stories you hear about the flooding and the frozen icicles dripping from ceiling fans and all the accidents and people sleeping in there. What was it that you were what was your expectation kind of going into this as opposed to what it turned out to be? But going into it, what were you thinking?
So I know 3 years ago, and we wound up getting almost an inch, and which doesn't really happen down here. And I'm in the San Antonio area, so that's doesn't really happen all that often. I think once every decade or so. So people can't drive in snow, and people are freaking out. So I was kind of thinking it might be something like that. But I always expect the worst. Well, what happens if? So when I started hearing reports about it and hearing some of the forecasts, I was like, well, I grew up in the Northeast, so I'm used to snow and driving in snow and slush. And all right, to go through the usual. Do I have enough water? Do I have enough food? Do I have, do my laundry now while I still have water before the pipes freeze, if they freeze? Charge all of your, rechargeable stuff, flashlights, all the typical stuff that you go through in your head. And then I made a quick run to the store for like some milk, and stuff that, you really can't store all that much. It's kind of topped off, and that was, I think I also bought another case of water just because I was getting low, and why not? I had it there and it was cheap. And that was it. That was really all I did. Oh, I take that back. I drained out a gallon of water I have a 7-gallon water container in my truck, and which is always full. So I drain about a gallon of that out because I leave it in my truck. And when water freezes, it expands. So a trick I've learned over the years, if you take out the water,
How far in advance did you like were people like starting to figure out, or did you first you think that other people started to figure it out? Because I know you're kind of ahead the game on stuff.
so I think it was Friday is when I first heard that it was going to get cold. Now, getting cold is not the same thing as you're going to get snow, because it gets cold here every year between December and January. It'll get down to 15 degrees,
Right.
but you don't get snow. So I was expecting the cold. Okay, we're going to get cold. Okay, make sure I have all my blankets and my sweatshirts and everything. Okay, cool. Um, Saturday, I went to the store, picked up a few things, came back, and that was it. And then, hell, I forget what day it snowed. Did it snow Sunday or Monday? I forget now. Last week was kind of a pretty big blur. Um, I remember waking up thinking, wow, that's a lot more than just an inch of snow.
How much snow did you end up getting?
I think we got about 5 inches here.
Like, it's going to be cold, but no one was really worried about getting.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be cold. I mean, that's to be expected around this time of year. And snow, okay, maybe we'll get an inch, maybe 2 inches, but nothing like we got. I mean, that was, and so it was the whole state. It wasn't just localized in one little pocket or two.
Yeah.
It was the whole state. That's what made it so much worse. Because I know there was a Big Bend, which is probably 8 hours from here. They got 12 inches of snow last month, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
And it was 60, 70 degrees here. And they had 12 inches of snow. That's, they're south of me, but west.
Yeah, that's Big Bend State Park and all that down by the border,
Big Bend State Park, yep.
Yeah.
Right there on the border. And they got 12 inches of snow.
Wow.
It was nice and warm here. I mean, we didn't get that. So that's kind of what I mean. It's in pockets.
That's crazy talking about that amount of
the whole state.
It's crazy talking about that amount of snow, and out here that's like a day. But when you talk about Texas, people just aren't ready for that, and I think that was the whole power grid, all of that stuff, the traffic, all of that stuff. People just weren't ready for. You think 5 inches of snow isn't very much. I'm happy sometimes when it only snows 5 inches out here, but we're ready for that stuff out here. Out there, a completely different story.
Well, the other thing too is our houses are not built. Yeah, and our houses are not built to keep the cold out. They're built and designed to keep the cold in and to keep the heat out. And I found drafts at pretty much every window. I had to shove towels at the windowsill because the draft coming in would literally freeze my feet off with shoes on.
Yeah.
As I'm sitting at my table working.
Wow, that's crazy.
So yeah, and I had the heat turned up. I got a picture of it. I had the heat turned up to 82, and it was 60, 66 or 67 inside.
Wow.
So,
and that's just that's all from the thermal pass through the walls and the windows and stuff. That's just wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's no insulation for that. It's not designed for that.
Yeah, makes sense. When did everybody like was there a point where everybody started kind of going, uh-oh?
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that like 24 hours afterwards?
I think Monday is whatever day it snowed. I mean, people woke up and said, okay, this is not just a half an inch or an inch. Holy shit. It's snowing.
And it stayed cold, right?
Oh, yes. I forget what the actual temp was, but I woke up, it was -9. The real feel was -9. I didn't believe it. I opened my door to my back porch and quickly closed it and realized, yeah, it's freaking cold.
So when was
it cold? That was cold.
When was it that people started, kind of thinking, hey, if this goes on much longer, or when were stories of failures and stuff, power failures and stuff like that starting to come out? Was that same within that 24-hour period?
It was that same day, maybe later that night. I mean, there was like 3 days. The whole thing kind of lumped into 3 days. It was really early on, like, oh, all of a sudden this person doesn't have power. Monday morning. So I have a security analyst who works for me, and she called me and said, "Yeah, we don't have heat." So, I mean, you don't have heat. Well, we lost our power at 1 o'clock Monday morning. So she was without power from 1 o'clock Monday morning. Her power finally came on for good Thursday afternoon around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And in between then, she had got power for the first time was for 5 minutes.
Oof.
The second time was for 10 minutes a day apart. That was the rolling blackouts. So yeah, you're not going to have power for a day, and then we'll give it to you for 5 minutes, which is
surprise
anything. Yeah. And then, turn it right back off again. She's like, the hell's going on?
That's like giving the residents the middle finger. I mean, what's the point of that?
Like, what happened to have that, on for 6 hours, off for 6 hours? Give me time to, at least bring the heat up, the heat level in the house up a little bit before it cools back down again.
Yeah.
Now, how long were you without power?
I wasn't. I had power the whole time.
So you had power the whole time.
I had power.
Just plumbing. Your plumbing was jammed up.
Yeah. Well, no, they turned our water off Monday night at 11 o'clock. They sent an email at 11 o'clock at night to let us know they were going to turn our water off. So, I mean, who reads email at 11 o'clock at night? Most people here, they're going to sleep at like 9, 10 o'clock because they all get up early to go to work. So Tuesday morning, people wake up, you only got one flush, make it count. And they had no idea.
Oh man, I bet that was a bummer for the second flusher.
I mean, I read the email and it's all right. And I walked over to the sink and sure as shit, I mean, they turned the water off before sending the email out.
And I'm sure
that makes sense. That kind of makes sense. I mean, 2021, why would you do it? Expect any different?
Yeah. Yeah. Like say, hey, you've got about 10 minutes to do your flushing and then we're shutting everything down. But no.
Yeah.
Unless you pay $1,000 to this Nigerian phone number, do it right now. The Nigerian Texas scam.
So I had power the whole time. It blipped once, I think, Tuesday morning, and it was, a blip. That was it. That was it. I had power the entire time. I couldn't heat the place up above 60 something because it just kept going out the windows. I didn't get water back until, what was it, yesterday, the day before? So 7 days I was without running water.
Damn. As the power was going out all around you and all of that stuff, when did you start thinking, okay, I better, did you start checking your supplies and making sure you had this and that? What was your thought process going into all that?
I had done that prior, just because I've been, I grew up in the Northeast, and it's snowing and all of a sudden you lose power, sometimes for 45 minutes, sometimes for a week. So, I was raised, you always have flashlights, always have spare batteries, always have this, always have trash bags. So that's the world I was, raised in. The only thing I did not have was propane bottles that were full, like full. But we can get to that part later for things improve later. But other than that, I was pretty much set.
So where were you doing your where were you doing your number 2 at then, man? And your number, what were you doing? Going out and making yellow snow writing your name or something like that? If you didn't have plumbing,
I have I don't know, 6 or 7 Nalgene bottles, and I have one that I have duct tape on it. I've got 2, 5-foot strips of duct tape that I wrap around it just so I have duct tape. And I use that one mainly because it's easier to grip without sliding. And number 2, easier to identify of the other bottles I had, which I had all filled up with water. But that was the number 1. And the number 2.
Wait, are we talking the same thing here? Because I was asking where you were taking a dump at, and you started talking about Nalgene bottles. You took a dump in a Nalgene bottle?
Covering both of them.
Okay.
Number 1 went in a Nalgene bottle.
Oh, okay. I was confused for a minute there. I was like, wow, that would be a rough one.
Nah, the number 2 went in a trash bag via a camping toilet.
I've got that right here. Yeah.
Pop that image up. Yeah.
It looks like an old person toilet, but I'll tell you what do you do? You put a 5-gallon bucket below it, and now
So I took a cardboard box, I think it was an Amazon box, and I just took a trash bag, put it in the box, folded the sides over the box, put it under that, worked perfectly.
Yeah.
crazy.
When I headed up to Michigan when the pandemic headed out, and I decided to go head to the woods, I used the whatever, the luggable loo kind of
I started with
5-gallon
that.
bucket with that.
So
Yeah,
that's
it works
what I
like
had in the back of my
Worked like
truck.
yeah.
I have that in the back of my truck. But that one I just got like the week. I need something else I'm going to use like every day for for the next year. I want something more sturdy. So I got that. I got here like the week before. So yeah, let me try this.
Dude, if you put some handles on that, you could use it like as an old person's walker and a pooper all at the same time.
No, it's way too low, man.
That's why you got to put the handles on it so you can walk it around like one of those, so you don't.
Doesn't have any wheels.
Dude, you're a prepper, man. Figure it out.
I'm not that old, man.
Figure it out. I'm not saying you're old. I'm just saying it would be convenient. You could like literally put some grip tape on it so you don't bust your ass on the ice. Right?
I guess you could.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress.
So I also had a different toilet that I tried that I never used before. I got it last year, and I had planned on using it, on trying it out. I'll send you the info on it later, Dale, but it's one made of all plastic, and it comes with the dual purpose bags. I'm here to tell you that thing is not sturdy for anything.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about. Like
it's got the legs that the 3 legs that the legs that pop up.
No, that looks like it was made for like a a little tiny kid, man. That doesn't look like it's made for a well-seasoned prepper.
There's one that's similar
for heavy duty,
like a box.
Yeah,
that's perfectly flat and square. That one is great.
Okay,
but the one that's kind of round that looks like a toilet seat with the don't waste your money. They're like
that one kind of looked more like you'd be like literally on your ass, like that just, and it's not a good time. That's not a good time to break the toilet seat. Like when that thing flies out from under you, you're not exactly in a position to
not
catch yourself.
Also trying to get the legs unclipped and folded back up.
Yeah,
especially if it's cold out, it's going to be just save your money. Don't bother with it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't mean to make it sound like it's disappointing you didn't lose power, but I know that from your and from a prepper perspective, maybe it is just a little bit because you want to test out all your stuff, especially all the money you put into everything. But with the situation like that, were you kind of making sure this and that was ready? You'd mentioned the propane and all of that. Talk a little bit about what you have in like what you would have done. Say your power did go out for 24 hours or so I think Sarah said hers was out for 36 hours. I know some people were probably more than that as well.
Yeah, some people were out for 7 days.
Good Lord.
So I have my one battery bank that's good for, I think it's a 1500 watt solar generator. That was completely topped off. And then I have my big battery that was completely topped off. I charged that everything the week prior and leading up to. So, everything I needed, and I have a whole bunch of solar lights that I keep in my truck, like the Lucy lights and whatnot. So I would have used those for inside lighting at night if I had to. And I've got flashlights and rechargeable batteries and all that good stuff. So the power mainly would have been to charge up my phone and my iPad. That's all that I can think of.
Because I saw a lot of stories about people sleeping in their cars. Some of them getting carbon monoxide poisoning, but sleeping in their cars
and dying.
Yeah. Would you have basically gone into the back of your truck and just lived it out there basically? Or would you have how would you have heated basically? If you didn't have any power, how would you have gotten heat? Because I know there's a lot of restrictions inside, but is yours portable enough to bring it inside?
So is my what portable enough?
Your whole setup. I mean, your the way that you're going to heat the back of your
Basically,
truck.
he's asking, can you take your stuff out of your truck? You got your truck all rigged up to be able to go do off-grid stuff. Can you pull your stuff
so
inside?
basically, I emptied my truck 3 weeks ago, and everything is inside.
Oh.
So, side story, the reason I'm doing that is because I took out my sleeping platform from the back. I removed the big back seat from the back of my truck because I'm building a platform to replace that area so I can stack stuff, put my fridge there, whatever else. Because I'm going to be using the camper to sleep in from now on, starting in June. So luckily I had everything out of my truck inside. So if I had to go out and use my truck, I just would have loaded up a couple of sleeping bags, a couple pillows, a wool blanket, and would have been in the truck. And that would have been more than sufficient, but I wouldn't have needed to do that because I could do the same thing inside.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Do you have like heating options for out there other than
probably
blankets?
4 or 5 sleeping bags, and one of them is a Sub-Zero bag.
So basically, your heating option would be to climb in your sleeping bags and just bundle
take a
up.
nap, relax, cuddle up, open a book.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. So like you don't have a separate like heater to power like in the back of your truck.
Well, I do, and this is the part that when we come to failures, I do have a Mr. Buddy heater, but I couldn't use it.
Why not?
Because the little 1 pound propane bottles, they have propane in them, but not enough to power or to run on Mr. Buddy. I could run my Coleman stove. In fact, I did, just to make sure when I was trying to get that working. The propane bottles themselves had propane, but I guess they weren't filled.
Oh.
So Mr. Buddy heater said, nope, not today.
Was it possibly too cold to use for the propane with the Mr. Buddy or something?
No, because it was in the 60s here, and I've used those things in 20, 30 degree weather before. So I think they were just low.
Yeah.
So, and by the time I realized that roads were closed, they had blockades. You physically could not get on the highway to get out, or even on the roads to get out. They closed all the roads, and they don't have salt or sand down here. So even though I know how to drive in the snow and the ice and everything, other people don't. So I'm not going to risk getting my truck totaled because someone who doesn't know how to drive thinks they know how to drive and crashes into me.
Yeah.
Better off just staying put, ride it out. And if worse comes to worse, I got 2 feet. I could walk up there. I could walk up to the store and see if they had anything. But again, that would have been nice, but I didn't need to. I had sleeping bags. I got full blankets. And if worse comes to worse, I mean, I have my BioLite stove, and I've got pellets. I've got a whole bunch of wood inside here that I'm using for building projects. I could cut that up and had my little BioLite stove on the back porch, charging up my phone or whatever if I had lost power. So I like having a lot of options for a lot of different things. Basically, it's camping. That's what I look at it. It's what would I bring camping if I was going to be gone for 2 months? That's what I'm going to bring.
Well, it's kind of cool that you got to test a lot of your stuff out, and actually go, hey, let me use this, or let me, it sucks about the Mr. Buddy heater, and that one kind of bit you in the ass, but I bet you never go without low tanks again, or maybe if one of the 5-gallon tanks that they're not that efficient, but you have the 5-gallon tanks or whatever they are that you can with the siphon. I
have a 20-gallon tank.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
It has to be empty because I found out there's a federal housing law where in rental units you can't have tanks of propane.
What?
I have a 20-pound propane tank.
Empty propane tank.
10 feet away. Actually, I have 2 of them. One is in the laundry room outside, and one is in the closet where the water came in. But they both had to be empty because there's a fine if they catch you with it. Actually, at least here, it's against the fire code and something else. It's in the lease contract. It's in you can't have propane. So technically, me having those 1 bottles of propane.
Yeah, it's only on the internet. Nobody ever watches it anyway, right?
So,
Hey,
but yeah, I will have propane once, because right now propane is extinct in this entire area.
yeah.
Oh, everybody
Nobody
bought
has
it
it.
up.
Yeah,
So what'd you have, Dale?
everyone. Yeah.
Oh, in the chat, Liberated Lady and Titan Preparedness were talking about this little buddy heater, and I think it was
That's what I have.
Liberated Lady said was talking about you can only use it for a limited time. Maybe it was Titan Preparedness, but you can't use it until the bottle goes empty. Is that for an indoor space? It looks pretty cool. You can heat. It says you can heat 400 square feet for up to 220 hours. I'm not sure what information I'm missing, but in the chat. Where is it? I don't know. The comments went away on me, but I don't know how much I would trust something like that in an indoor area for an extended period of time. But it looks like a
Yeah.
pretty cool option.
Well,
The
I
little
wouldn't
buddy
have
has
used it for
a
very long.
the little buddy has a shut off on it. Right, that if it start too much propane or whatever carbon
It's
monoxide
got
in
a
the air,
CO, it's got a seal monitor. So
yeah, it'll shut off. I
Exactly.
don't trust it just because
neither.
the fact if it fails, then like what's your backup to that failure? You know, I mean, I guess you
Exactly.
could have a CO alarm. You know, I used one in my trailer, but I would just turn it on to take the edge off, shut it off, and then I was good. But I mean,
yeah, that's what I was planning to do. And then I also have. Let me get up and grab this real quick.
he's gonna come back with like a 10-foot spear or something like that.
Yeah.
Some crazy shit.
Liberated Lady said in the chat too, and I think she had mentioned this before, but she's a full-time camper. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I have a little ceramic heater.
Yep.
See if I can get it in the.
Here, let me switch to a full shot for you.
So it's a ceramic heater, and it's actually got a timer. You can control the temperature, so you can say, "Hey, turn off after an hour, 10 hours, or whatever."
What fuel
and I
does
had
that
this
take?
sitting here the whole time and forgot about it.
What fuel does that take?
No, this is
Electric fuel, Dale.
yeah,
Oh.
110.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking about if you don't have electric, yeah, that's kind of cool to have. But
Hey, Dale, you should get like an extra like 5-gallon gas can of electric. Keep it around just in case the power ever goes out.
yeah. Hey man,
So
I'm doing 15 things over here. I can't pay attention to.
I've got two 110 outlets on my Blue Eddy solar generator, so I can run 110 volt until it drains the battery.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I would have used this just to get the feeling back in my feet, turn it off.
Yeah. What was some of the things that like just the average person that's not the prepper out there? What were they like? Some of the big challenges you saw, or they were dealing with?
So they were filling their toilet tank with snow so they can flush a toilet every day, which I think is a really bad idea, because if it's cold enough to make your pipes freeze, it's freezing the liquid in the pipes. And you don't want to add more liquid with the flushing water in a toilet, because that's going to at some point meet the frozen water, and it's just going to do more damage when it thaws out. And that's damage I don't want to be around. People didn't have water, like potable water. People who did get water turned back on earlier, they were under a boil order. So a lot of people didn't have water and power were the two biggest things I saw.
Right.
People were saying, hey, my mom, who is 98 years old, she lives alone. She has no power. She's on oxygen and she has no water. The good thing that I saw on Facebook is the community. If they know you need something, they won't let you go without.
Yeah.
There's a 4x4 club in Bernie and New Braunfels and a few other places. And they were going to places, sheriff's departments were bringing water to people, but they would go out. They were going out Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and making home deliveries of fuel, propane, dropping off generators to people, water, food. I mean, all kinds of supplies. It's like the community banded together and took care of people that they knew were in need.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's kind of like the Cajun Navy, only different.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what people will actually do for each other, and we don't even need the government for it, huh?
I read a story where I don't know, she was like some delivery girl. She I guess got stuck literally when everything hit, and so she was stuck in front of a house, and she went up knock on the door, and they let her in, and they kept her there for like 5 days. Gave her a room and fed her, and
Yep.
because she's like, I can't go anywhere. And so I thought that was like just a really cool, good news story.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
there
All these
was
little Facebook groups are, for these little towns. Typically there's one person, whoever the owner of that group. Okay, if you need something, put it here. If you can deliver stuff, let me know. Here's my phone number. Call me, DM me, PM me, whatever.
Yeah.
And they made it happen. Kind of like the ham operators of Facebook. Like, hey, if you have power and you get on here, let me know what you need, and we'll take care of the logistics. And they made it happen. It was awesome.
yeah.
Nice, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, in our next show, we're going to be doing a show on Friday on the Duff and Dale the Duff and Dale show over on YouTube. Anybody that's here that's not subscribed over there, make sure and go subscribe. But we're going to be talking about like a pole shift and stuff, really cataclysmic type disasters where there's not a whole lot you can do. But stuff like this, and even yesterday, I think is what we talked about. Would you invite them in? Would you let family come in? Disaster situations like this are exactly this is where people will be pretty happy to have a prepper around, because this isn't, the typical stereotype of a prepper is we're all hiding and we're hoarding and we're not going to share anything. But a situation like this, they would be, some of the most helpful people out there in these situations, especially when it comes to food. I would be anyway. I mean, maybe there are some that wouldn't, but if my neighbors were starving or whatever, and I knew there was an end in sight, you bet your ass I'd be giving them some food. I'd be doing whatever I can, because then, what comes around goes, or what goes around comes around type thing.
Well, this is kind of where when we like last night when we were talking about, would you kick people away, turn people away from your house and stuff. I think sometimes as preppers, right, we think about all these disasters in terms of everything's gone. Like this society's never coming back. So like I'm bringing you in, and you're gonna like basically you're living here for the rest of your life. And when has that happened? Not saying that we shouldn't plan on that happening, but when has that happened? Look at this. This is 3, 4, 5 days. Hurricane Katrina was a couple of weeks. So I think when we have a lot of times when we talk about this stuff, I think we look at it in a unrealistic perspective. Granted, it's hope for the best, hope for the best, and hope that the worst doesn't happen and society never comes back. But at the same time, what happens here? Do you get back to this? Do you turn people away now when it's a 3 or 4 or 5 day event? And when you have them, okay, what happens if something else happens and now they're there for a month? What's your plan for dealing with it at that point? So I think kind of questions you have to look at. And again, we plan for the worst all the time, and not saying it won't ever happen, but society's never shut down 100% where you're going to be all right. Hey, we're little house in the prairie together, and since you're here forever.
Yeah. The dangerous part about
these are your neighbors. So if you did turn them away, can what happens if a month from now something happens and
they're going to
he's the one
remember.
who's prepared and you're not?
Yeah, they're going to remember too.
And he could help you. He's like, oh well, you didn't help me last time, so no, go away. Now what? So I think a lot of it is going to be look at it from a realistic standpoint. Like we knew it was going to get warm. Like we knew, hey, you know what? It's going to be back up in the 70s next week. Okay, as long as we can wait it out a week, if you can, okay, it'll go back to normal at some point. Katrina, it went back to normal at some point. It always goes back to normal at some point. Could be a day, a couple of weeks, but it'll get bad. It's just how bad is it going to get? And then it goes back to quote unquote normalcy. Learn your lessons, but plan for, it's plan for the worst, hope for the best, but keep in mind it's the little things that are going to get you. If you forget, people couldn't do laundry. I did my laundry before it ever happened, just to make sure that, halfway through it, if it did last a month, you know what, at least I have clean clothes, which if nothing else, It's just putting on a fresh pair of clothes or clean just helps you relax, if nothing else.
Yeah. I think that,
A warm meal.
yeah. I think the dangerous part about all of that stuff, and in those short term type situations, it's all great, but it doesn't take much to take. I mean, something that lasted a month would look a whole lot different than something that lasted 3 days,
Oh,
5 days,
yeah.
and then the longer you get into that stuff, I mean, it's like you said, it always comes back to normal. But there's all that stuff, you're going for a month, something like that. There's bound to be massive food problems and stuff like that. So you just never know how people are gonna, what they're gonna do in that until it gets back to normal type situation. So that's kind of what as preppers we kind of do is we're like, okay, we'll help out. I'll help out when I know that it's maybe a week or so, something that is I'm gonna be able to replenish my stock, but if this is something that may go on for 6-8 weeks or something, I'm rethinking my strategy at that point.
well, I mean, even look at it, right? Like, it went on for about 3 to 5 days, depending on where you're at, a lot of it, right? Well, what was, they say, it's the 100-year storm, or it's a storm that never comes through. Okay. Well, what also never happens is 2 or 3 storms don't just hammer right after each other, right? That hasn't happened in history just like this, but there's a potential out there for it. So what if all of a sudden you're getting stuck in that snow? People were there for 10 days. I mean, you talk about the number of people dying, because again, it's not, I mean, we couldn't respond as I guess as a country that didn't respond well initially to Hurricane Katrina. And you're talking about a city, like one city, right? Like, well, lay that out over all the cities and the size of the state of Texas. And now what do you have? You have a huge problem on your hands. So
Plus, I think you've got to be able to midway through, reevaluate your situation and maybe change some of your earlier decisions depending on how things are now as opposed to what they were a week ago. So yeah, it's only lasted 3 to 5 days, but what if at the very end, all of a sudden, oh, now we're going to get another 5 inches and it's going to get even colder.
Yeah.
They didn't see that one coming, but yet here it is. Okay, now what?
Yeah.
So you got to be able, I would say, don't be so rigid in, okay, you got to be fluid. You got to be able to be dynamic. You got to change, adapt, and kind of rethink on the fly. And say, okay, this is how it is now, but what happens if tomorrow, what would I do if?
Yeah.
So I
Well, and
kind
I
of
think
keep my eyes open too.
that's why we, as preppers, we have to look at all these different possibilities. It's, when the coronavirus is coming around, most preppers had N95 masks, even if it was one box of them set away. When all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, I got to tie the, Frito Bandino bandana on my face and go figure it out. Most preppers, like, I got N95 masks. I had enough of them where I went around and gave them away to people. Like, hey, here you go. And they're like, hey, what are you giving me the stupid mask for? Kind of stuff. But it's like knowing that, okay, if this thing ends up being something that the mask works against, fine. Then I got the mask. I have the hand sanitizer and all that. And so that level of confidence going into it, like, I got this, it might be kind of a couple crummy days. And like you said, you didn't know if you're going to have water flowing in from your neighbors above you down into your house and stuff. And at the same time, at least you could have moved all your stuff in your truck and been fine. Heck, you could have moved all your stuff in your truck and gotten out of there and been fine.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned in your notes too that one thing you would do differently is you should have took off to New Mexico or something.
Arizona. Yep.
Arizona. Yeah.
So the one thing I did that I don't think I've ever seen anybody post anywhere or document or write, but one of the things I did, and I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, I've got a 50-quart cooler. And when I was filling up water jugs, I just happened to have, be at the refrigerator, and I heard my ice maker dump a fresh batch of ice. So light bulb went off, and I emptied the ice into the cooler. So I packed up the cooler with ice cubes because at some point it's going to melt and I'll have water. So in addition to the jugs and bottles and whatnot that I had, I also had 50 quarts pretty much of ice cubes that, hey, if I had gone through everything else, I could at least heat that and make water, in my stove or whatever, with or without power. I mean, I got camping stoves and I got, wood stoves. So I could have melted that to make water. if I had to. That would have been, that was my cutoff. If I got to that point, okay, there's no end to this in sight. We don't know when it's going to, okay, that was my, at this point, I need to get in the truck, make a new plan. I need to get out and find something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's all that age old question? Do we bug out or do we bug in? Right. And so when the coronavirus came, everybody ended up like basically being forced to bug in. And then on something like this, it's like, it's not the end of the world coming. It's not like some invading army coming at you or anything like that. But it's like, hey, you know what? The place where I'm at that I would love to be able to bug in at just got really crappy.
Yeah.
And I need not really to bug out, but it's literally evacuate. I need to get, like maybe that's my best option is to get the hell out of there. So
yeah, looking back, I probably could have just driven out to Arizona and camped out for a couple weeks and then drove back here when it all cleared up. I mean, that would have wasted a lot more gas and money, but
it'd been cozy.
Would have been nicer. Would have been so cold.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned the whole ice cube thing, and I've got a question that's completely off topic, but Lisa and I were talking about this the other night because of our, and I talked about this on one of our shows. I don't even know what show anymore because we do so many of these damn live videos, but Lisa and I our well went out the other day, and Lisa and I were talking about what we would do as far as, there's snow outside. How would we get water? I found out I was going to get one of those little PVC wells. I found out my well is 500 feet deep, so that's not happening. But I was thinking about those water catchment barrels, the 55-gallon barrels. If I were to pack that with snow, I mean, as stick a little kid in there and have them step down on it or whatever, and just fill that sucker up. How much water, and then just bring it inside and let it thaw out. How much water?
You're not going to get as much as you think you are.
Well, actually, somebody put that in the New York half-ass prepper put it in the chat. 10 gallons of snow equals 1 gallon of water.
Yeah.
So
you're
I
was going to get as much water as you think you are from snow.
Oh, I was thinking 7 gallons. That was my bet the other day. So, and that sounds like it may be
a 55-gallon drum would give you 5 point by
5 gallons or so.
New York half-ass preppers math would give you 5.5 gallons.
Hey,
but what you could do is once you melt it, put more snow in. You keep piling snow in there and it turns to water. So it'd be something you'd have to do for a while. But
that's a trick we learned up in New York State at deer camp. When you're in a cabin, you're literally on a mountaintop somewhere with nothing, no power, nothing. And just trying to make coffee in the morning for water because now your water jugs are frozen because it's 20 degrees below zero. And you try and heat snow to make water. The biggest thing is once you get it going, just keep adding snow so you have it'll melt quicker in warm water than it will in a hot pot. So
yeah,
but it's better if you can melt ice because it's a lot more water by volume than snow.
Yeah, true, very true. So I'll throw a bunch of ice chunks in that sucker too, and then pack the edges with snow, and yeah. I
got the idea to put the ice cubes in the cooler rather than snow because I'll have all that water. I mean, if you buy a bag of ice, look how much water you have when it melts in your cooler, and it makes all your food really shitty.
Yeah. Lisa and I were having.
Sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah. Lisa and I were having these conversations the other day. It's kind of interesting. The whole no power out, talking about. If it's freezing ass cold inside, I'm going outside to start a fire and building some sort of lean-to or something and keeping warm outside if I can't bring fire inside. That whole outside the box type thinking stuff is what you kind of have to do sometimes.
Bags, dude, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Get sleeping bags.
Well, but if you can get some sort of fire pit or whatever, I'm going to have a little fire going.
Oh, you can go outside for a fire, but, keep in mind wind.
Yeah, you'd have to think about all that stuff. Plus, if everybody in the neighborhood saw you do it, and then all of a sudden they're doing it, and all of a sudden you got 15 bonfires all over the place, and then pretty soon the whole neighborhood's on fire. Yeah.
I just like to keep it simple. I mean, if I got sleeping bags, I don't need to go anywhere. I just put the sleeping bags on the bed, crawl in, go to sleep. I'm warm. I'm toasty.
Yeah.
In fact, I know I'll be hot because I got, that Sub-Zero bag is no joke.
Yeah.
But just keep it simple. If it works, great.
Yep. All right. Hey, before we get out of here, I didn't really give you a chance to explain in the beginning, but You've got an article over at on your wildsafety.com about the nomad life. Kind of explain to everybody, first off, what your website's all about and what you kind of have planned here coming up in the future that we've all been patiently waiting for too, by the way, Kevin.
So I do wilderness first aid courses, mainly wilderness first aid, wilderness first responder. I do survival type courses on demand. Now I only do custom courses on request. But I've made the decision in June, when my lease for this apartment expires, I ordered a camping trailer that should be here in the next few weeks. And I'm going to basically do what Brian did on a much longer basis and live out of the camper, live on the road, and work while I'm on the road, but be able to travel, visit state parks, national forests, and save money, because I'm paying $1,500 plus a month for rent. So being able to live out of a camper that I'm paying for in cash, brand new, and I have a whole bunch of other gear on that website. So people ask me, well, what do you do if? And then, so yeah, I have a 12-foot by 10-foot. Scroll down and you can see it. That outside on the very bottom, that outdoor. It's kind of like a screen tent. But it's 12 foot wide, I believe, and about 10 foot tall. That's going to be my everything off-road camper, so I can go, get away from where the other people are and kind of get away from everybody else, and do my work. Propane. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff I have. Power, solar panels, which I'm getting 2 more of next month, just for even more power. But the biggest thing is what works over a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year. You see all these gadgets that everyone gets, and it works nice, on a weekend. But what happens if you use it for 6 months straight? Is it going to hold up? Does it really work? So a lot of the gear I have, I know works on weekend camping trips and week-long stuff. How well is it going to hold up being used every single day for 6 months or a year? I don't know, but I'm going to find out.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool, because I'm going to have Brian and you that are going to be doing this stuff eventually. So I'm not going to have to do anything, and I'm going to get all these lessons. So pretty sweet for me.
Not telling
well, you can send us stuff. Who has to test out for you?
What's that? Brian was being a smart ass.
You can send us all the stuff you want us to test out for you.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I can fund your guys' adventures.
Yeah, see, you buy the stuff, you send it to me and Brian, we'll test it, and then give you the review. And
I may need to think about that a little bit. All right. Well, do you have anything else, Brian, before we get out of here?
No. Hey, thanks everybody for watching. Everybody that was going back and forth in the chat, and make sure if you haven't subscribed here to Survivalist Prepper, subscribe here and head over to the Duff and Dale Show and subscribe. It says over there we go live on usually Tuesdays and Fridays or thereabouts. Sometimes it changes, but that's pretty much what we're doing.
Yeah. We've got the Duff and Dale podcast too, which is available on Stitcher, iTunes, all those different places. Shows that we do here, I'll also be doing the audio version in case you missed. You can't sit through a whole video. I'll be doing that at the Survivalist Prepper podcast itself. So that way you can, while you're driving or whatever, you can actually listen to it, listen to the whole thing. But yeah, I appreciate everybody in the chat. Very cool. A lot of great comments, Titan and everybody else, and Liberated Lady, and I don't remember any other names. So, but I appreciate you getting.
Are there any questions that they asked that we didn't get to in the chat?
I think Brian was paying more attention. I think we got basically most of them, right?
Yeah, we're good, man. I think we hit it all.
Okay. Cool. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on with us tonight. This is kind of impromptu, but I just kind of like to get that firsthand experience, that firsthand information about what's going on down there, rather than the mainstream media and all that crap. But with
Anytime,
that,
guys, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, we'll talk to everyone later.
See y'all.
Bye.